Bison Dele's story is one of the most heartbreaking tales the NBA has ever seen. What happened to him didn't just make headlines, it left fans completely stunned. No one could believe how such a tragic and bizarre situation unfolded. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive in and break down exactly what happened to Bison Dele and why it shocked the entire basketball world. Bison Dele had it all. He was a 6'11" NBA champion, a smart and adventurous guy who walked away from millions of dollars at the peak of his career just to live life on his own terms. But what started as a peaceful sailing trip turned into one of the most mysterious and tragic stories the NBA has ever seen. On July 6, 2002, Bison Dele set sail from Tahiti aboard his private catamaran, which he named the Hakuna Matata. Yes, it's a misspelled version of the Swahili phrase Hakuna Matata, meaning no worries. And that seemed to fit Dele's free-spirited lifestyle. Joining him on this trip were three people: his girlfriend, Serena Carlin, the boat's skipper, Bertrand Saldo, and most notably, his older brother, Miles DeBoard, whose real name was Kevin Williams. Now, Dele wasn't just a basketball player turned world traveler. He had been known to keep in close touch with his family and his bank during his travels. Same with Serena. They didn't just disappear for long stretches without anyone hearing from them. That's why what happened next raised immediate red flags. The last time anyone heard from the boat was July 8th, just 2 days into the trip. 4 satellite phone calls were made from the boat in total, and then silence. No more calls, no texts, no bank activity, just nothing. Then on July 20th, 12 days after the last contact, Miles DeBoard suddenly brought the boat back into Tahiti, alone. No Serena, no Bertrand, and no Bison. At first, DeBoard didn't raise immediate suspicion, but it didn't take long before his story and his behavior started to fall apart. Dele's family and friends quickly realized something was terribly wrong. They helped set up a sting operation to catch DeBoard, and on September 6, 2002, police in Phoenix arrested him. But the situation kept getting weirder. DeBoard had forged Bison's signature. He used Bison's passport to open mailboxes and bought $152,000 worth of gold under his brother's name. It wasn't just a random mistake. He clearly had a plan. Around that time, Mexican authorities discovered he'd been staying in a hotel in Tijuana. Even stranger, the Hakuna Matata was found floating off the coast of Tahiti. The nameplate had been removed. Parts of the boat had been patched, possibly to cover up bullet holes. Things were looking bad, and investigators were starting to piece together the horrifying possibility that all three people, Bison Dele, Serena Carlin, and Bertrand Saldo, had been killed at sea. The FBI and French investigators got involved. They discovered that DeBoard had bought around $200 worth of weights, which they believed were used to weigh the bodies down before throwing them into the ocean. At that point, there was little doubt in the minds of authorities. Dele, Carlin, and Saldo had likely been murdered, and the only person who knew what really happened was Miles DeBoard. And then, the story took an even darker turn. Shortly after being arrested, DeBoard fell into a coma after intentionally overdosing on insulin. He died on September 27, 2002, in a California hospital, taking the full truth of what happened on that boat with him. But before slipping into that coma, he gave a chilling version of events. According to DeBoard, he and Bison got into a heated fight on board the catamaran. During the argument, Serena Carlin allegedly got in the middle of it and was accidentally struck. Her head hit a metal part of the boat, and she died from the injury. The boat's captain, Bertrand Saldo, apparently wanted to report her death to authorities. DeBoard claimed that a panicked Dele killed Saldo to cover it up. Then, in what DeBoard described as an act of self-defense, he shot and killed his own brother, Bison Dele. He said he then threw all 3 bodies overboard. But FBI agent John Steiner, who led the investigation, wasn't buying that version of events. Forensic experts found no evidence to back up DeBoard's claims. There were no signs that things went down the way he said. Plus, if it really had been self-defense, why go through so much trouble? Why remove the boat's nameplate? Why patch up bullet holes? Why steal Bison's identity and buy gold under his name? And perhaps the biggest question of all, if he had nothing to hide, why overdose on insulin instead of telling his side to investigators? To this day, we may never know exactly what happened on that boat. The ocean doesn't give up secrets easily, and without the bodies, much of the case remains a heartbreaking mystery. It's important to note that Bison and Miles had a complicated relationship. They were brothers, but they had a long history of fighting. One crew member who had sailed with them before even quit mid-trip because he couldn't stand how much the two argued. That tension may have played a key role in how things unfolded. After DeBoer's death, his lawyer and lifelong friend Paul White was asked about the case, but his responses were vague, and he offered very little insight. Eventually, a memorial was held for both brothers. But for those who knew Bison, his family, friends, teammates, and fans, the pain was hard to process. Here was a man who had stepped away from fame and fortune to find peace in his life, only to lose it all in such a tragic and senseless way. Before his life ended in such a tragic mystery, Bison Dele, born Brian Williams, had a pretty unique basketball career. He wasn't just another big man in the NBA. He was talented, unpredictable, and often misunderstood. His journey through the league was full of surprising turns, and the way he walked away from the game might have said more about him than any stat ever could. Dele played college ball at the University of Arizona, where he showed flashes of real promise. He was tall, athletic, and had a soft shooting touch, something not every big man had at the time. After 2 seasons, NBA scouts saw enough to be impressed. In 1991, he was selected with the 10th overall pick in the first round of the NBA draft by the Orlando Magic. But his first couple of years in the league didn't go the way he probably hoped. Playing time was limited in Orlando, and he never quite found his footing with the team. He showed potential, but the minutes just weren't there for him to really grow into a major role. Things changed a bit when he moved on to the Denver Nuggets. Over the course of 2 seasons there, he began to show more of what he could do. In the 1993-94 season, he played in a career-high 80 games and averaged 8.0 points per game. It wasn't superstar-level production, but it was a step forward. More importantly, he was finally getting consistent time on the court. Then came a stop with the Los Angeles Clippers, and this is where things really started to take off for him. With the Clippers, he had more freedom and more minutes, and he made the most of it. He averaged an impressive 15.8 points per game, by far the best numbers of his career up to that point. It was clear that when given the chance, he could produce like a solid starting center in the league. But just when it looked like he was finally turning the corner, a contract dispute threw everything off track. He reportedly asked for more money than teams were willing to offer. And just like that, no one signed him at the start of the 1996-97 season. He ended up sitting out most of that year. Then right before the end of the regular season, the Chicago Bulls gave him a call, and that move changed everything. This was the Michael Jordan-led Bulls, chasing their 5th NBA championship. Dele was brought in as a backup center, and while he didn't play heavy minutes, he made his presence felt. He gave the Bulls solid bench production and provided size and energy whenever he stepped on the court. When Chicago won the title that year, he earned his championship ring. After that, Dele signed with the Detroit Pistons, and that's where he really hit his stride. Over the next 2 seasons, he put up the best numbers of his career. In the 1997-98 season, he averaged 16.2 points and 8.9 rebounds per game. He had become Detroit's highest-paid player and was seen as one of the key pieces on the team. On paper, everything looked great, but behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth. Dele had a strained relationship with the Pistons organization. He didn't like how the team was being run, and it seemed like he had lost the love for the game. He had always been a little different from other players, more interested in life outside of basketball, more thoughtful, more private. Then in 1998, he made a symbolic decision. He changed his name from Brian Williams to Bison Dele to honor both his African and Native American heritage. It wasn't just about a new name, it was about identity, about embracing who he truly was. And just 1 year later, he made another bold move. Right before the 1999-2000 season, at just 30 years old and still in his prime, Bison Dele walked away from basketball completely. No big press conference, no farewell tour. He simply retired. He left behind the remaining 5 years on his contract, worth over $36 million. Why? Because he didn't want to be traded, didn't want to deal with the drama, and maybe, just maybe, because his heart was never fully in the game to begin with. Some say he never really loved playing basketball. He was good at it, yes. He made millions doing it. But his true passions were elsewhere, in music, in travel, in exploration, in living life his own way. And so he left the league not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And that wraps up today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.